Welcome back to the Wealth Blueprint Brick by Brick, featuring the Sapphire Group, your hosts Jessica and Marissa. Today, we're really excited to welcome our guest, Tim Hudak, the CEO of the Ontario Real Estate Association. How are you doing, Tim?
Great, Jessica. Thanks for having me on. Great to see you. And Marissa here, Wealth Blueprint Brick by Brick. So I'm going to ask you the first question. Where did you come up with the title?
Oh, that's a good question. We were looking for a title for a while. To be honest, ChatGPT did help us out a little bit.
But you know what? It gave us like 10 options and then we structured it together.
Yeah. I like it. Yeah. Right? It struck me when you guys invited me, and thank you. It's great seeing you both. Thanks for having me here in Markham for the broadcast. Look, if I saw that, I'm thinking, okay, if I'm somebody who wants to invest in real estate or I'm starting out in life, I am building my financial plan brick by brick. Right? So I love it. Good call. And so drop the ChatGPT thing and say you came up with it.
Okay, yes. We're going to get them to edit that piece out, right?
Yeah, we're going to edit that out, okay?
Yeah, so not all of our listeners are familiar with OREA. So can you kind of just tell us what OREA is all about?
Yeah, you bet. So the Ontario Real Estate Association, or OREA, O-R-E-A, represent Ontario's 100,000 realtors. So all the hardworking women and men throughout our province in every big city and small town that are helping people find a great place to call home. We represent them. And Marissa, the big parts of our job are advocacy. We want to see primarily more homes that average hardworking Canadians can afford. Number two, to raise the bar when it comes to professionalism. We want that realtor at your side when you're making the biggest transaction in your life, when you're buying or selling a home, to be the best trained, highest professional standards, great consumer protection anywhere in North America. We also provide the standard forms for real estate exchanges, no matter where you're in the province. We've got a form to help solve any kind of real estate issue that may occur. And third, we invest in leadership training. Realtors do an awesome job. They're heavily engaged in their community. And so we invest in their ability to give back to their home cities as volunteers, from the Boys and Girls Club to soccer to real estate associations.
Thank you so much, Tim. I really appreciate it, especially all the emails you send, all the updates on all the bills that are passed, how realtors can better help their clients. I think it's really important to be part of OREA, and I really appreciate our membership in it.
No, thanks, Jessica. You made my day. That's it. I'm done now. I can go home. We'll wrap it all up. But no, thank you
very much. We're not
done
yet. We've got questions for you. So obviously, realtors know what OREA is, and you just went into kind of a briefing for our followers and our clients. But how does OREA help homeowners and those looking to purchase homes? Because I think there's a lot you do that you can talk about.
Yeah, I know you've got a lot of folks who are across real estate, whether they're investors or home owners, mortgage brokers, lawyers, and just plain fans of real estate. So in a nutshell, OREA are the champions of home ownership. We're there for homeowners and people who want to become homeowners.
They recently launched the Homeowner Protection Act, and I think you've been kind of going all over town, spreading the knowledge with that. Is that right?
Spreading the gospel, absolutely.
Yes.
So part of our job is advocacy. So we act on behalf of the realtors and the women and men and families that they're working hard for each and every day, just like Jessica and Marissa, you guys are doing as well. And so we want to make sure that when you make that big investment of a home, that there's protections for you as a homeowner. So the minister responsible for consumer protection took a lot of the ideas we brought forward and introduced legislation called the Homeowners Protection Act. So in a nutshell, I have to go into some details, but it will protect homeowners against scammers that try to rip off particularly senior citizens and other vulnerable homeowners when it comes to inflated bills for water heaters or for furnaces, for example. It provides for a 10-day cooling off period as a consumer protection when it comes to buying new homes from developers.
Right, because before it was for condos, but now it's also for freehold, which is great.
You got it. So this had existed for condos, so we said it should be for freehold as well. And look, the reason for that, Marissa, is that when you're buying from a major builder, it's not a level playing field, right? Picture that young couple, they got a baby coming along the way, and they're cross-tailed from the developer. And the developer is backed up by a lot of lawyers, their marketing team. They've got a standard contract. Sadly, some developers say, don't use a realtor, just deal with us. That's a mistake. You should always use a realtor to look through and look for your best interests. And sometimes there's high pressure sales, and you'll sign a contract and you won't get the best deal.
I bought my house on Zoom.
There you go.
There you go.
It was a different time then. In 2021, properties were flying. If you wanted a property, you had to make a decision in an instant, or you we're going to lose out. And so I think a lot of people bought properties and had some regrets after. So the 10-day cooling off period will work wonders in a...
You got it. So you got 10 days to change your mind, to talk to your realtor, to talk to your lawyer, and making sure you get the best deal possible for your family.
Now, I want to say I saw that the acts were passed. So the bills are passed, but they don't have a date for that 10-day cooling off period, right? So they're waiting on that. And I also noticed something that you wrote to us was, you weren't pushing for a 10-day cooling off period for resale homes. And obviously as realtors, we totally understand that. But can you talk a little bit about why you pushed for that?
Yeah, great question. So in British Columbia, for example, they've got a cooling off period for resale homes as well. And here's why we support it for new homes, but we do not for resale. I explained for the new homes, it's high pressure. It's the young family up against the developer and their lawyers and their marketing side. So it's not a level playing field. But when resales, it is, right? You've got the older couple that are selling their home across the table. It's a level deck. They both hopefully will have the realtor there. So because it's not a high pressure situation, you've got a level playing field. They're equals. We don't believe there should be a cooling off period in that circumstance. The second reason is practical. So here's what we worry would happen if they brought that in. Let's say it's a multiple offer situation. And you could have somebody who is very well financed, rich individual, and they make offers on many houses, and then they get them. And then the buyers move away, right? It's nature of the business, some other house. In the cooling off period, that well-financed multimillionaire could basically put a gun to the head of the little lady selling her home and say, hey, if you don't come down on that price, I'm going to get out of this, walk away from this deal, and exercise the cooling off period. So that kind of pressure could cause somebody to lower their price and not have what they need for retirement. It is not fair. So we pointed out this vulnerability, and the government listened.
Yeah. Great. We appreciate that because we know that in BC, they actually do have that cooling off period for resale. And from what I understand, there is like a penalty if you do pull out. But still, like you mentioned, it would be... they would have too much power and kind of take advantage of people in certain situations. Like if a couple already purchased a home, now they did an offer presentation, all those other people moved on, then they might be forced to lower the price and take that offer because they just want it to be over and done with.
You got it, Marissa. And if you have to, relist, people wonder, why is it back on the market? Is there a problem with the property? We looked at what's happening in British Columbia. It is not working. It's not in the interests of average hardworking Canadians. Yeah, it can benefit speculators, but we should be looking out for average hardworking people instead.
And I love that you guys are making condos, pre-construction condos and freehold kind of the same in terms of the cooling off period. And I don't know if you have a suggestion box, but something that I would love to see is over the last couple of years, some builders, actually quite a few builders, went belly up, and people that bought these pre-construction freehold homes, the deposits were kept in the builder's name, not in a trust account with a lawyer. So I would love to have that still, because with pre-construction condos, it's with the lawyer in a trust account. It'd be great if people were protected as well for freehold.
Fantastic idea. Yeah, I will definitely work on that because we have been pushing on this notion because we've seen too many sad stories where people who invest in pre-construction, then the builder walks away and they're left high and dry and they don't get a return on their investment. There's complications. So somebody has to stand up for those home buyers. I will say in that Homeowner Protection Act, we did have a step forward. And basically that if you've got a builder who has pulled this stunt in the past, it's going to be on the record. Yeah. So home buyers, the realtor could look that up and say, okay, this guy's actually done this 2 or 3 times, and then be very cautious if you're going to deal with that person again.
Yeah, it's the HRCA. Is that what you're referring?
You got it. You guys doing your homework here on the Wealth Blueprint, eh?
We definitely want to be educated. And I think, just let's say you put something down in 2017, you put down $100K, and then a builder's like, you know what? Yeah, you can get your tear on warranty back, you can get the money back, but the project's not going forward. That $100K from 2016 is not $100K now. And especially in the economy we're living in, like, people do need to be protected. I understand, like, it has to work both ways. Builders need to want to have to build and want to produce because we're living in a crisis. But at the same time, 100K is not easy to come up with. And so I think any step moving forward to be able to protect buyers, while at the same time recognizing that people will still purchase. We need homes.
Yeah, Jessica's a great point. So as you know, and many of your audience, there's a regulator for realtors called RICO. So I make sure that they have regular continuing education. If they break the rules, there's discipline. We push to say if there's bad actors, kick them out altogether. The government listened. That did not exist in the past for builders. And we did push for a RICO-like institution for builders. You named it the HCRA. So they're there to make sure there's consumer protection when it comes to buying homes from a builder.
That's awesome. Now, I wanted to pick your brain. Maybe there's some, things that you have in the works. But what are some other pro-ownership policies for homeowners that can build affordability closer to home for Ontario residents? Because it's tough out there.
For sure. And thank you for what you are both doing. I know you're out there every day in the heat of June and through the summer trying to help, people who did everything right. They played by the rules. They got their degree. They got a good job, but they're still stuck in mom and dad's basement. So thank you for what you're doing and the realtors out there to try to get the keys to a great place to call home. It's probably, Jessica, the biggest part of our job is pushing the province and cities and the federal government for more ways to get homes built that average Canadians can afford. And I could probably do the rest of the show on this, but I'll give you some examples. Like in urban areas, intensifying, building more homes in lots around, particularly on transit stations or where highways exist. Picture a wartime bungalow in Thornhill. And, right now, people could knock that home down and they could build a 4-story monster home. And it's their choice, right? We support that. That's their right. They've worked hard for their money, providing for their family. But Jessica, they want to knock down that wartime bungalow and build a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex. Holy cats, they go through this regulatory ringer. Lawyers get involved. The NIMBY forces descend, and eventually they walk away because it just costs too much, takes too much time. And who loses out? It's those 3 or 4 families that can't get a place. So that would make a big difference in urban areas. The other one I'd suggest is using government properties and targeting those to build homes for first-time home buyers and quality rentals. In New York City, Mayor Bloomberg actually built 160,000 units using government property, targeted first-time buyers. So they can do it in New York. Surely good we can do it in Ontario.
Yeah, and with a lot of people working from home, I'm sure we can repurpose some other buildings. I don't know what that exactly looks like. Maybe you would know a bit more, but I think that would be a great way to work with what we already have. I would think that repurposing a building should be easier than building from the ground up, right?
Fabulous idea. That's on our list because, as you mentioned, Marissa, in the work from home world, there's more commercial space that's underutilized. So it's already built, it's on servicing, it's good for the environment. Why not convert that where you can to residential? Calgary, by way of example, has been very successful. It won't work for every commercial property, but even some would be helpful. There's a model out there that we could follow here in Ontario.
So you were talking about, there's a lot of red tape for builders, and that was another act that you kind of pushed forward and passed. Is there anything that we could present to builders on that? Because the process is long. And so if you want to build that fourplex and that family of 4 is waiting, how do we get through that faster? And does that mean, putting more people, putting in more processes? How do we just cut those timelines so people can do what they all do best? We can find people homes, builders can build, people can get in those homes.
Man, I will say again, I'm impressed by the homework they do here on the Wealth Blueprint. You're right on the money. It takes too long to build the home. I mean, in some places like York Region, up to $120,000 in taxes and fees just to put the first shovel in the ground, right? And who pays that? It's the first-time home buyer that goes on top of the cost of a home. So we've pushed for a number of initiatives, and to the credit, the Fort government has listened. They've given municipalities more tools to speed things up, to slow down or eliminate the runaround, get rid of red tape to get more homes built that people can afford faster. My hat's off to them. We need municipalities to use those tools. Some are doing it, some are leaving them on the shelf. So here's our suggestion. Every year there's a budget from government, the provincial or federal, that will have funds for things like roads or transit or the arena. So if municipalities are playing ball, they're using the tools and they get homes built that average Canadians can actually afford, their project goes to the top of the list. They get the new arena, they get the bridge, the road expansion. But if they don't play ball, they close their doors, they don't want young people moving into their community, well, then they don't get the funding for those other projects. I think that carrot and stick approach can get things moving even faster.
The use it and lose it. That's what I read out of the red tape.
It's true, too. Use it or lose it. If a builder goes through the process and has everything approved and there's nothing slowing them down, the view is that if they don't then start putting homes on those lots, then they lose the permission to go ahead.
And I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it should incentivize them to move quickly and get these houses up and ready for homeowners, right? So OREA has done a lot of work advocating for realtors, which is great. It's coming up with new legislation like the Trust and Real Estate Services Act, so TRESA. Phase 2 came out last year. I think Phase 3 is launching soon. What can we expect?
So Tressa has moved us. I mentioned earlier on what the big things we do, helping get more people a great place to call home, and then making sure we have the highest professional standards in North America. So the Trust and Real Estate Services Act, Tressa, as you said, has achieved that. It means more disclosures for consumers, more clean language so people understand, the trade-offs in a real estate exchange, personal real estate corporations to enable realtors to invest back in their business and improve services to their consumers. What's been very important for us too is a greater ability of the regulator RICO to kick people out of the profession if they're breaking the rules, suspend their license, and do proactive investigations. All of this very good progress. You asked about phase 3. So a big priority in phase 3 is closing the loophole for auctioneers and for lawyers. Auctioneers do not have the same regulatory framework that exists in other areas, so consumers are vulnerable. There should be a similarly high standard of consumer protection when it comes to auctioneers. We would also like to see specialty certifications. So a lot of realtors, right, invest a lot of time becoming experts in certain areas, maybe waterfront, helping seniors by way of example. So just like lawyers when they graduate from the bar can practice law anywhere, but they usually specialize, labor, family law, so too could realtors. And they would have specialty certifications they could put out that would be backed up by a book of business and education to say they're experts in a particular area. That's also on our list.
And is that going to be through OREA or?
So we'll go through the government of Ontario. We need to convince them to do this. That's a part of our priority for the year ahead. And then RICO, as the regulator, will be the ones that would enforce that set of rules. And we'll be consulting with members. You were kind enough, Jessica, to mention earlier on the outreach that we do. So we'll be working with our realtor members and brokers to say, what should these specialty areas be, and what boxes should you have to check off before you can, put that shingle out for consumers to be attracted to.
So Tressa Phase 2 was launched last year, and a lot of realtors were talking about one specific thing, which was sellers being able to give more transparency towards the offer process, which was interesting because in 2021, in the heat of the market, we were getting 20, 30, 40 plus offers on a typical property. And, a lot of buyers were getting very frustrated. They didn't find it was fair. They were frustrated, right? And they wanted a more clear picture of what other people were offering so that everybody was on the same page. And so then Tressa Phase 2 came out, and sellers were able to provide that transparency, but they could also choose not to. So can you talk about what made you guys decide to roll this out?
Yeah, there's a long history. So you're exactly right, Marissa. Back in 21, the heat of the market, you remember there's a big demand for people saying that they didn't like the multiple offer. They wanted something that was more transparent. A lot of consumers said that. And look, the best way to address affordability issues is to get more homes built that people can afford, right? And we talked about that earlier on. That's the best way. But transparency was mentioned as an issue. So we said, okay, let's look at a new model. And the government did listen, which would enable the seller to share the contents of offers. Now, the buyers need to opt into that. They need to say that's okay to share that information. So there'd be more transparency in the process. This does exist in the Western provinces. They did not have a restriction on keeping everything at the table, that you could actually share the contents outside. And basically what this does is it gives the home seller a choice. And I think it reinforces the important role that a realtor plays, because they'll say to you, right, they'll say, Jessica, should I do this or not? Is it my interests? And the experts can say, well, there's an additional tool. Maybe we'll use it in this circumstance, and maybe we won't, and inform sellers. So it's pro-transparency. It gives realtors another option, and it gives home sellers another option as well. It's at the end of the day, it's not about getting prices lower. The only way you can do that is by building more supply, but it does enhance transparency and choice in the system.
Have you heard about it working out? Because Marissa and I haven't experienced it yet. I ask every time, but no one's willing to share. And I get it. I would give my clients the same advice, but I'm just curious. How does it work?
Yeah. Well, it's brand new in Ontario, right? I mean, it exists in the Western provinces, but it's new in Ontario. So we do hear about it anecdotally. I heard from one woman actually that I met in a totally unrelated issue that was buying a home in Toronto. She was in the energy business, and she went through the open offer process. And she said she and her husband actually really appreciated it, because even though they weren't successful in purchasing the home, they did see each step of the way if it went up by $2,000 or $4,000 or $5,000. And ultimately they said, in the advice of the realtor, it's out of our range. but they appreciated the transparency. And they said that the realtor who conducted it on behalf of the seller was very professional, earned their trust, and did it in a very transparent fashion.
That's great, because I know representing a buyer, even like when we win an offer presentation, like they're really happy, but then a part of them is like, wait, did I overpay? Like, what was the last offer? Like, did I pay like 50,000 more than them? Or was it like, did I just win by like 5,000? So I think it would be great in those instances as well.
And you know, I will never forget this. I lost a house by $5,000. And that client, like, we ended up getting one on the street. It was more for like convenience, but like I was like waiting like 2 days. Okay, is it updated now? Is it updated now? Is everything, like, is the deposit through? And like the anxiety of that, I was like, oh my gosh. But had we known, we would have totally given the 5,000 and, you know, won it. So I think it's helpful in that way. I just don't know how I would feel if I was, you know, representing a seller.
Yeah, and then people will look to you, right, as experienced individuals who will look out for the sellers for the best advice. It is happening. It is a small part of the market. Will it grow? Well, we'll see. The other part that's important here is it is up to the seller to decide with advice from their realtor. And here's why we recommended that. It's the seller's home, right? It's a seller's home. It's their biggest investment. You know, let's say you're going into retirement and you're going to depend upon your home for dignity in retirement, where you're going to have, you know, your maybe your final home, or you want to look out for your kids. So it was important that the seller be in the driver's seat because it's their hard-earned property, but it's now up to them and the advice of the realtor if they want to have the traditional offer process or share the contents of offers.
Exactly. A home is the biggest purchase someone's going to make, or, you know, their retirement for some. And I don't think it should be an easy process. I don't think it should be like 40 offers in 2 seconds. You're deciding, yes, I'm selling to this one, or I'm buying this because I've been bid out. It is literally the largest transaction people would make. And I think it's important for organizations like OREA, for RICO, for realtors to be informed and be able to support their clients the best they can. Very well said. Would agree.
Well, thank you so much, Tim, for coming out. We really appreciate your time and all the knowledge that you provided to our listeners. As Tressa Phase 3 comes out, it will be on their website at OREA.com, and any other latest news as they will be sharing. So make sure that you visit their website and stay up to date.